Democratic Socialists of America and part of the coalition that's brought all the people here to speak for one issue with one voice. I was interested to see that the new state budget includes $100 million for moderate income housing. When Governor DeWine explained his rationale, why, it was that we've spent so many million dollars, hundreds of million dollars, in investing in bringing corporations to Ohio, and now those factories that are being built need workers, and the workers don't have homes, and thus the money for the middle income housing. No mention was made of Ohio's 450,000 citizens with extremely low incomes who also need housing. They don't become the well-paid workers at those new factories. It's not efficient to support them, apparently, in the legislature. And I think Cincinnati's budget has had the same failing. It wasn't that many months back when the majority of the council, not all the council, but the majority, decided not to put money aside in a fund that would support low-income people making 30% of AMI or less. The reason given in council was that it was more efficient to subsidize moderate income housing there. Well, of course, it's never efficient to support the people at the bottom of the economic hierarchy in society. And that's why we need to socialize human needs so that we together, through our city tax system, can provide stable housing for all members of our city. We need a city tax structure that supports everyone so all of our citizens can flourish. And that's why our coalition collected 12,000 signatures for an affordable housing ballot initiative. You as a council can join us in this, or you can fight against it. But either way, we're in it for the long haul. This initiative is going to change the status quo of affordable housing. It's also going to change the political status quo when it passes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Would Andy Karenbauer please approach the dais? Brendan Foe is our next speaker.
Thank you. My name is Brendan. I'm 37 years old, and I've lived in Cincinnati for 32 of them. Like many here, I'm here to ask that this council put the Affordable Housing Amendment on the ballot in November. Just this year, I got married and bought a house, but before that, I rented, and the vast majority of everyone I know, my friends and acquaintances and coworkers, still rent. The only way I was able to afford a house was 2 deaths in my family, and even then I had to partner up with my brother so we would have enough money for that house. I think of this, in June, there were all those headlines that other people have mentioned about how Cincinnati is the fastest growing city for rent in the country. But that June, this council also voted 8-10 to approve or to legalize accessory dwelling units in this city, ADUs, which are essentially just allowing a single-family home to rent out basements and attics and whatnot. And the idea that that's proposed as a serious solution to some of the housing crises we see now, instead of funding the Affordable Housing Fund, seems ridiculous to me. I'm sure many people here remember that over the last few years, 3 members of this council were arrested on corruption charges and convicted relating to selling their votes to real estate developers. I'm not saying that any of the sitting members here are corrupt, but when I see things like ADUs that favor Airbnbs proposed over funding the housing fund, it does not invite favorable comparisons. Whether or not there's corruption on this council or not, it's immaterial if the end results are the same. Please vote and put this on the ballot and show and dispel to the people of this city that the idea that you serve the interests of real estate and not the needs of your citizens. Thank you.
If I could please have Liz Gottmer approach the dais. Our next speaker is Clara Conover. Welcome, Clara.
Thank you. Hello, City Council. My name is Clara Conover. I'm with Peaslee Neighborhood Center in Over the Rhine and a rising senior and student organizer at Miami University. I'm here today to tell you to pass this incredibly important motion. As a student of urban planning and a justice seeker, I firmly believe, as do everybody else in this room, that housing is a human right. You're being approached today by the 12,000. 12,000 people, 12,000 hands, 12,000 signatures and voices here once again to not only inform you of a need's urgency, but the power of the people and the presentation of an alternative. As a soon-to-be college graduate and Cincinnatian since birth, I went to Mount Notre Dame High School, and I'm at Miami now. I'd want nothing more than to return to my home city. I'd like to echo the voice of this movement. Rent is too damn high. Over $1,000 for a studio apartment is ridiculous, and not everyone can afford that. The issue is a lack of an alternative, and we've come together to place a solution in your hands. The people of the city, including your voters, are watching you in this critical moment. City Council, why not let them decide by putting this on the ballot? Save us a year's time. I'd like to be back in my home city a year from now, but that requires a set of keys and a roof, coming at costs that I, among many in much more dire circumstances, can't afford. This issue is urgent, the solution is realistic, and your vote today directly impacts the lives of all of us gathered here today. Pass the motion.
Thank you. Salah Shorthouse, please approach the dais. Andy Karenbauer, welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Andy Karenbauer, and I'm with Peaslee Neighborhood Center, and I'm also a student at Miami University. I'm here to tell you to pass a motion today committing yourselves to putting funding for truly affordable housing on this November's ballot. I'm thankful that I have the ability to be here today to speak with you, but there are many more who can't be here today because they have to work to pay the rent that they can't afford. I'm not a native Cincinnatian, and in fact, I've only been here for about 2 months, but I already feel a love for this city that I have not felt before. This love doesn't come from the development, but from the people who fight every day for everyone's basic human rights, including truly affordable housing. The people of Cincinnati can't afford to live in Cincinnati. You have the power to change that today, now. It is possible. It would cost most households only or less than $11 a month, but would bring in $40 to $50 million every year for truly affordable housing. It's possible, but I implore you to try not to think about what it's going to cost you, but instead think about what it's going to mean to the people of Cincinnati. Thank you.
Thank you. May I please have Joelle Newman approach the dais? Our next speaker is Liz Gottmer. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Liz Gottmer. I work at Peaslee Neighborhood Center. More than 5 years ago, in the face of increasing gentrification and displacement in Over the Rhine, my coworkers at Peaslee began doing a ton of research on national best practices in responsible and equitable development. Along with hundreds of community members from all across Cincinnati's 52 neighborhoods, they had a ton of dialogue about what Cincinnati residents need built in their neighborhoods. Spoiler alert, it's not more luxury condos. They agreed that it was not enough for development projects to create short-term construction jobs or part-time retail jobs. The job creation that city leaders always touted was not enough on its own to justify such rampant for-profit development. Together, Peaslee and the community carefully crafted the equitable development rubric, which, rather than handing out tax abatements like candy to maximize developers' profits, would instead award proposed projects more city subsidy not only for creating jobs meeting all fair labor standards, but also for creating desperately needed units of affordable housing, for robust and earnest community engagement practices, and for protection of existing community assets. After doing all this work with so much intention, Peaslee shared the rubric with City Council members. It was one smart and well-researched solution to our city's inequitable development practices, gift-wrapped and offered to Council on a silver platter, and Council passed it up, saying it was asking too much of the developers they'd rather bend over backward for. I would remind you of what Dr. Martin Luther King wrote, "Justice too long delayed is justice denied." The community has once again worked hard and gift-wrapped this opportunity for you to finally address our shortage of truly affordable housing that most of you claimed in your campaigns to care about. Please, for the love of equity, put a measure on this November's ballot to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund 439. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please have Chris Heckman approach the dais? Salah Shorthouse is our next speaker. Welcome, Salah.
Hi, my name is Selah Shorthouse, and I'm with Cincinnati Action for Housing Now. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, and I'm here to tell you to pass a motion today committing yourselves to putting truly affordable housing on this November's ballot because we need affordable housing now. A few years ago, I needed a place to live. I was in Cincinnati, I was working 40 or more hours a week, significantly above minimum wage, and I could only find one home I could afford. It was a 500 square foot trailer. The roach infestation was so bad that there were regularly live roaches swimming in my fresh morning coffee that I had made 30 seconds before. The landlord fined me $100 on top of the rent I could already barely afford anytime they thought the grass was too high. There was obviously no room for a lawnmower in my 500 square foot, so I was going out after work with scissors and a ruler trying to trim the grass. Options provide dignity. With truly affordable housing, Cincinnatians will not be in these positions. You do not want roaches in your coffee. We do not need coffee roaches. You do not want to trim your grass with scissors. We don't need to trim our grass with scissors. What we need is affordable, dignified, accessible housing for every person in Cincinnati. What you just heard was my situation with a pretty good job. My friends living on Social Security make as little as $700 a month. As we all know, you need 3 times the rent to qualify for an apartment. There is not one home in the city for under $250 a month. Put affordable housing on the ballot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. May I please have Jennifer Summers approach the dais? Our next speaker is Joelle Newman. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joelle Newman, and I am a proud steering committee member for Cincinnati Action for Housing Now, and I'm also an employee currently at Peaslee Neighborhood Center. And I add to all that has already been said, but not only do I want to kind of highlight the issue of affordable housing, we know from numerous studies what the issue of affordable housing is. We know from numerous studies what the issue of homelessness is. And we also know from numerous studies what the solution is. And I'm excited to talk about what's possible, or the hope that this type of solution, connecting the number one issue with affordable housing, knowing that resources or lack of resources to affordable housing is the number one issue that will impact our homeless situation and folks living in housing or living in homes insecurely. And so I want to talk about the hope that's possible with this type of solution. I want to talk about the hope that's possible with stabilizing our neighborhoods that are currently gentrifying, and where we're losing generations of Black and Appalachian folks from neighborhoods who stayed here and stabilized our neighborhoods when a lot of investment was pulling out of the urban core. I want to talk about the hope that's possible when our public schools are stabilized, because our kids don't have to worry about where they're going to lay their head at night, and parents are able to be more involved in their children's education. I want to talk about the hope that's possible for young professionals like myself to be able to buy a home with with down payment assistance, especially knowing the gap that currently exists between Black homeowners and white homeowners, and Black folks trying to gain wealth in this country and in this city, and white folks, their wealth disparity. And I want to talk about the hope that's possible when folks know that every single year we're able to build or stabilize 500 homes in our city when we're at a deficit of over 30,000. And so I encourage you all, we know what the solution is possible. We're bringing a solution, and we're bringing 12,000 people to support you all in this effort to vote for this in November. And so I encourage you all to put this on the ballot in November for the people to support you. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please have Mary Rivers approach the dais? Our next speaker is Chris Heckman. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. My name's Chris Heckman. I have lived in OTR with my wife and kids for the past 14 years. I'm on the board of Peaslee Neighborhood Center, and I echoed Joelle's comments here. I'm here to tell you to pass a motion today committing yourselves to put funding for truly affordable housing on this November's ballot, because we need housing now. This should be the easiest vote today because it makes sense to turn it over to the voters to decide, especially with the expected turnout in November's election. Restoring the earned income tax rate to what it was in 2020 makes sense, especially for a critical issue for so many. I witnessed the trauma of the current housing market for a decade through my former neighbor, Tony Minter. Since 2018, he was effectively a homeless pinball, bouncing between couches, family members, friends, hospital, stressing his relationships and severely impacting his health. Tony was 47 when he died in April, and he deserved better. His death is proof that doing too little is the same as losing. Helping more families afford to live here is worth the $11 a month that the average family would pay. That's less than the cost of a Bengals jersey every year. You know, we're all happy that our sports teams are doing so well. I'm sure everybody would agree with that. And we can passionately cheer for Cincinnati to bring home trophies. But I also want to leave it truly better than I found it. And not just because I bought a jersey and cheered for a team, but because I helped a neighbor afford Cincinnati. Thank you.
Thank you. May I please have Allison Gerwe, Gerwe, approach the dais. Jennifer Summers, welcome.
Yes, hello. My name is Jennifer Summers. I'm a resident of Spring Grove Village, and I'm a resident of the city of Cincinnati for over 30 years. I also work at Peaslee Neighborhood Center. The crew's all up here. And I want to speak today from a couple of different perspectives. And one is just, it's already been said many times, sometimes that this is a hard thing that maybe we are asking you to do, whether it's levying taxes. But I promise you that it is not harder than what thousands of Cincinnati residents are doing every day to hustle just to survive in this city. How do I know this? I know this because our families and friends at Peaslee, who just ended our summer camps, their moms and dads are doing that every day. That's why they're not here. They're at work. They're at work today, and then they're going to wonder whether or not they're going to make the rent the next month. I think also because I've been involved in housing, justice, and equity work for 30 years, I started out very young in this work. One thing that I've been hearing that is very consistent is that we have to pay attention to tax base. The promise that we will have tax base and then we can do these things. Well, here we are 30 years later, and if we stay on this structural road, we know where it ends. When we talk about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that we are asking you to vote on today, that we have been showing up for quite some time, 88% of African American households in this city would benefit from that fund. So we are making a very critical choice about where we invest our dollars and who it's for. So I'm asking you to do the hard thing, the right thing, but also the thing that has been tried by cities all across the country.
Thank you. Please have Nina Caporale, Caporale, approach the dais. Our next speaker is Mary Rivers. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Mary Rivers. I'm with Over the Rhine Community Housing. I'm here to tell you to pass a motion today committing yourselves to putting funding for truly affordable housing on this November's ballot, because we need this housing now. This is so important to me because as an affordable housing developer, I can tell you with certainty that incremental efforts are not sufficient. Good intentions, kind hearts, strategic initiatives, and even hard-fought battles for $5 or $6 million will not prevent thousands of people in our city from experiencing homelessness, will not prevent the daily trauma of living in cars, couch surfing, staying in short-term hotels, and will not alleviate the not knowing day to day where a family will sleep at night. This council has recognized the affordable housing crisis in Cincinnati. The crisis has reached every city and every state in our country. As different municipalities struggle to find meaningful solutions, Cincinnati has the opportunity to lead the way. The impact of the lack of affordable housing cannot be overstated. The good news is that the positive impact of passing this initiative cannot be overstated either. It means investment in our neighborhoods. It means jobs, healthy homes, new homeowners, infusion of cash in local economies. The positive ripples will be felt for generations, just as the lack of affordable housing reverberates negative outcomes across the lives of many Cincinnati families. This ballot initiative will raise upwards of $40 million a year for affordable housing. The private owners of 4-unit buildings in neighborhoods from Roselawn to Westwood, from Paddock Hills to Hyde Park, will have access to capital and rental subsidies to make the math work. Community development corporations across the city will be able to develop community-based housing. Low-income homeowners from Pleasant Ridge to Madisonville, from Price Hill to Evanston will have access to funding to keep and improve their homes. The time for bold action is now.
Thank you. May I please have Linda Tobin approach the dais? Our next speaker is Allison Gurwey. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you. My name is Allison Gurwey. I'm a Hartwell neighbor. I'm a Vincentian volunteer at St. James Valley Catholic Church, a member of the Voices of the Poor, St. Vincent de Paul, member of the Affordable Housing Advocates, a member of Amnesty International USA, and a volunteer at many of our local nonprofits supporting neighbors in need. I'm here to tell you today to pass a motion committing yourselves to put funding for truly affordable housing on this November's ballot because we need housing now. I speak on behalf of neighbors making the difficult choice to live at overpriced and substandard living, like in Williamsburg and my own neighborhood, escaping domestic and community violence, and my friends who are immigrants looking for safety, living 21 people in one house in the next neighborhood over. Housing is a basic human right recognized by a diversity of organizations from the United Nations Human Rights, Amnesty International, to the Catholic Church. Housing is a right, not a commodity. It is time for our government to take the reins and to take it back and do what's right, uphold our basic rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please have Daniel Zimmer approach the dais? Nina Caporali, welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Nina Caporale, and I'm a member of Communities United for Action. I'm here today to ask you to please pass this motion to create an income stream for Fund 439. We will continue to work and fight to get this passed with or without you. We already have the signatures to get it on the ballot. Obviously, we believe it is urgent and we want it on the ballot this November, not waiting another year. I personally feel the urgency myself. I am 41 years old, and I live with my father, who is almost 80. My grandfather owns the house that we live in. My father and I are the last 2 members of our family who live in the Cincinnati area. I was born in Pleasant Ridge, one of 5 sisters. Everyone else has moved away, and my father and I are constantly encouraged to move away to where it is more affordable to live, because we can barely afford to live where we presently live. My grandfather is nearly 100, and soon we anticipate that he will pass. He is also one of the last surviving veterans of World War II. We celebrate him every day, but we live in constant fear that he will pass and we will be evicted. Every day, almost, he receives a phone call begging to sell the house out from under us. And a house is worth more to them on paper than it is to us because we can't afford it. But we can't afford to go anywhere else. Please, put it on the ballot now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I please have Aiden Sims approach the dais? Our next speaker is Linda Tobin. Welcome.
Hi, Mayor Pruba and Council. My name is Linda Tobin.
Could you
And
get closer to the mic, please, Linda? Thank you.
My name is Linda Tobin, and I'm a member of CUFA, Cincinnati Housing now. But I'm 53, and my whole life I lived in the West End. So I know a lot about this history down here. The Germans came through here, Italians, all immigrants started here. Then they branched out. But my reason for being here is because I am homeless at the time, at this present moment, and I've always had a place to stay. The system that you all have in place does not work for a person who's always worked and then they fall and they need help. Either you got to be on drugs, be an alcoholic, to follow the plan, and that don't work for me. Now, well, today I just took my test for the Board of Elections and passed it, so I'm an employee for them. And at the same time, once that's over, I'll be working at another job as well. But it's just that the system don't work for a person that's middle class. Either you have to be on drugs or you have to be have some type of dependency. So if y'all can, I'm not gonna be like demanding or something to that nature, but I just would like for y'all to think about the bill or the amendment, add it, because as you can see, there's so many people here and we do need it more than entertainment. I think we have enough of that. So that's all, the only reason why I'm here. And I thank y'all.
Thank you. If Dumar Ball could please approach the dais. Daniel Zimmer, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Zimmer. I am a teacher and department chair at Cincinnati State Technical and Community College, where I teach English to immigrant students, including people from communities represented and referenced here today. Plenty of people in the room know the costs of homelessness and housing insecurity, the financial, the human costs. I see students missing classes, struggling academically because they have to work all night to pay rent and then come to a 9 a.m. class. Falling asleep in class because it's hard to get a good night's rest when you live in your car. Imagine working on a college degree and living out of your car. Plenty of people here know the cost of homelessness, and yet there always seems to be a reason we can't put even a minuscule fraction of our wealth towards affordable housing. Always seems to be a reason we can't do what seems to be the bare minimum, can't meet the most fundamental needs of our city's populace. It is, to me, disgraceful. It's absurd, and I don't understand how we can sit with this. Where is compassion? So I ask that you do the bare minimum with the power of your positions and pass a motion today putting affordable housing on this November's ballot. Don't spit in the faces of people who need what we all need, a place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kyle Williams, please approach the dais. Aiden Sims, welcome.
Hello, my name is Aiden Sims, and I occupy the People with Lived Experiences chair of the Homeless Clearinghouse. And this is the second time I've stood here to plead for affordable housing. It is imperative that you choose to pass the motion today, committing yourselves to put funding for truly affordable housing on this November's ballot, because we need housing now. I've attempted to live my entire life in the city of Cincinnati, contributing primarily to the community of Over the Rhine as a resident, worker, and activist. I've been displaced from homes in OTR and the Central Business District twice by the same landlord whom I knew personally. Prior to that, I experienced a period of having inconsistent housing during which I couch surfed or lived in my car. Just last year, I ended up in a roach-infested extended stay hotel due to the availability of affordable housing. A lack of stable housing has been incredibly destructive to my ability to thrive. I do not believe my story is unique, particularly because I speak as a woman of color and a person with a disability. I implore you to help me and the roughly 30,000 individuals and families underserved by our current housing policies. Please honor your commitment to equitable, affordable housing by focusing on options for those of us scraping by at 0 to 60% of the area median income. Please define affordable housing at 30% of the minimum wage. Create a housing mediation court and adopt pay-to-stay policies. And finally, please put affordable housing on the ballot this year. Life is to be defined by something as essential as housing. Thank you.
Would Son Smith please come up to the dais? Our next speaker is Dumar Ball. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I am a migrant. I came here 27 years ago. I live in great city of Cincinnati. In this time, 1,000 immigrants come in this city. Mr. Mayor, be honest with you, is suffering. I have 20 people in my own house. 20 people in my own house. All my friends, all Mauritanian community come here before. They have 5, they have 6, they have 7. Please, we need help. This young immigrant ran away from her own country. They left her family, they left her mom, they left her dad, they left the children. They ran away from slavery. They ran away from discrimination in killing. Time I come in this great city of Cincinnati, 1997, I come here. I sleep in mosque. I never give up. I always keep fighting. Right now, I have 20 people in my house. I feed them. Please do something for this young immigrant come in this great city of Cincinnati. Please do something. We have thousand Mauritanian right now in this city. Please do something. They need help. They need education. They need health. They need to do something. Before they get employment authorization card, they go to work. They have to wait 6 months to get employment authorization card if they like it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please do something.
Thank you very much. Could I have Daniel Shorthouse please approach the dais, as well as Son Smith. Our next speaker is Kaya Williams. Welcome.
Hi, Mayor and council members. My name is Takaya Williams. I'm a rising junior at Xavier University. I've lived in Cincinnati my entire life. My first time experiencing homelessness was when I was 15 years old. My mother worked 2 jobs. She was a single mother supporting 3 children. My father was an immigrant who got deported when I was 2 years old. Homelessness is not something that only happens to adults. It's not something that only happens to your stereotypical drunks or drug addicts. It is something that happens to plenty of members of Cincinnati, plenty of people that live in Cincinnati, plenty of people that love their home like me. At 15, I wasn't old enough to get a job. I was confused and I was hurt. I would go to my after-school programs and I would come home to an apartment in Avondale that we were squatting in and we were lucky to have. I found myself being homeless again at the age of 18 about a year ago, right before entering my sophomore year of Xavier at Xavier. I worked my ass off in high school to get a good enough scholarship to be able to afford to go to Xavier, and I worked my ass off throughout my entire sophomore year of college, working 4 jobs, still trying to participate in all those school activities to keep myself afloat, and still trying to find affordable housing. It's not a thing here in Cincinnati. There is no reason why a college student who is working full-time hours at 4 different, compiled together 4 different jobs, and still being a full-time student should have to worry about finding a home to be able to study in,
to be able to sleep in, to live comfortably in. A grown man who was 43 years old offered me to live in his home, went rent-free, and be his maid. A white man that probably wanted me to fulfill his sick desires, I said no, because I'm looking for affordable housing. I'm not looking to be a maid. You guys have the power. Do something with it. Thank you.
Is Son Smith here? Anybody? If anyone knows Son Smith and they arrive, please let me know. Could I please have Carl Beckman approach the dais, as well as Mark Mussman. Our next speaker is Daniel Shorthouse. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Daniel Shorthouse. I currently live in Norwood, but don't hold that against me. When I was an infant, my family joined a high-control religious group that I now characterize as a cult. When I was 10, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And after I became an adult, those two factors combined to keep me socially isolated and economically dependent for decades. Now, as we've heard, my situation is, different in the details, in some ways better than others. I had some very good friends who kept me off the street and kept me from having to choose between paying for housing or paying for insulin. My disability allows me to work. Other people, as we've heard tonight, face racial and other prejudices that I do not. If one of those things had been different, I am absolutely certain that I would have ended up on the street and probably dead of diabetic ketoacidosis by my mid-20s. And my family didn't join a cult because everything was great. The fact is, nothing leads to a productive, kind, generous, and stable society like economic security. And nothing except food and clean water is as important as housing. We have the opportunity to make that your legacy. People who are experiencing economic security are more productive. They are more likely to be civilly engaged. They are more likely to vote. And they might vote for you if they think that you are on their side, which is something that you have the opportunity to do by putting affordable housing on the ballot this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please have Isabel Farrell approach the dais? Our next speaker is Carl Beckman. Welcome.
Thank you. My comments today pertain to the photo enforcement motion being made today. Good afternoon, Mayor Purval, distinguished members of council and staff. My name is Carl Beckman, and I am a native Cincinnatian and a lifetime member of the National Motorist Association. I am respectfully requesting that you not place the photo enforcement matter on the ballot this November. There has been no public meeting regarding this important matter. It shows poor planning that you are trying to bring this up as an emergency motion. The cameras do not solve the problem of red light running. The cameras which were installed in Washington, D.C. have been churning out tickets since 1999. Problem intersections can be fixed by lengthening the time of the yellow light or making sure the traffic light is red in both directions. If the problem of red light running is so systemic, cameras will never solve the problem. The cameras deprive drivers of basic legal rights. Example, due process. Studies by North Carolina State A&T University, the Virginia Department of Transportation, and the Washington Post have shown that these cameras actually increase the number of accidents. Red light cameras are associated with higher levels of different types and severity categories of crashes. Rear-end crashes and injury crashes increase. Exchanging T-bone crashes for rear-end crashes is unacceptable. If the driver behind me is going to run the red light, I would prefer that he get T-boned versus him striking my vehicle in the rear and injuring me. Some courts have ruled that the cameras are unconstitutional. Many jurisdictions have eliminated or banned the cameras. In order to pay for the cameras, the city needs a steady stream of violators. This will be a civil fine, which means that the motorists that are ticketed might not want to pay the ticket. They can't really be forced to pay the ticket. To give you a little history, Steve Bailey, a traffic engineer with the city, sat in this very chamber in August of 2004 and told the law committee that if you enact photo enforcement for the purpose of revenue generation, it will fail. Thank you.
Stefan Pryor, please approach the dais.
Wait for you.
Thanks, bud. We're holding. Our next speaker is Mark Mussman.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Mark here from the Homeless Coalition, author of Steal the Street. Hopefully y'all read it. I'm obviously here because you all have the power today to help with this on the ballot so we don't have to wait an extra year for the money from this fund to start hitting the streets. We have families today that could use this funding to create generational wealth. I know of families that have 5, 6 kids who are at the brink of losing their home because the homeowner, the property owner, can't afford to make the fixes, and they can't afford, with the way the banks work, to get the loan in time. We really need you to do this. The good news is it's a pretty easy ask. You know, a lot of times we come up here and we don't have all the details ironed out, but you all have been on board with this. You've had a chance to look at it. We've been meeting with you. So it's something that you can do. The other good news is it's going to be on the ballot in November anyway. So everybody who's watching at home, make sure that you're registered to vote. Know that you have to have a specific type of ID. The laws have changed so that you can vote for affordable housing in November. The reason why people are saying truly affordable housing is because we know that the need is for families making under $50,000 a year, and currently the fund of funds is not required to be in that space. And we also know that the city has recently adopted the 12-county region for our median income, which puts the affordable housing rates out of reach for many in our community. So just do the easy thing today. I know you can work with the city manager, the mayor, and you all can do this emergency today, call a meeting next week, and just get it done. And we'll be there to support you throughout these years as you continue to support the people here in the city of Cincinnati. So go ahead and do the right thing. This is for equity. This is for families in our community that need it the most. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. May I please have Pastor Leslie Jones approach the dais? Our next speaker is Isabel Farrell. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Isabel Farrell with the Cincinnati Action for Housing Now campaign, and we're asking for you to support truly affordable housing and pass this motion today. This amendment will sustain rentals, homeownership, and development of affordable housing. I cannot afford to buy a home, and I believe that if you're renting, you are at the whim of your landlords and at risk of losing your home inherently. I've seen this firsthand because I've been a licensed real estate agent for the last year. If there is a continuous inventory of accessible, affordable housing, then our housing market wouldn't continue to balloon in the way that it is. I've seen people going to apply for loans, getting turned away, and the intensity of our current market. Homes under $300,000 are not affordable, and there's no inventory there, let alone you can't buy a house under $100,000 because it's not livable. Then it's only accessible to investors who turn around, slap some paint and siding on it, and rent it out for exorbitant amounts. I've worked in shelters, nonprofits, and all of this is great, but it is a Band-Aid solution. We need real solutions, and we are one step closer with this initiative. This would be the most important and impactful reform the city of Cincinnati would have passed in generations, possibly ever, and would affect tens of thousands of people immediately and for generations to come. As the most progressive city council our city has ever seen, you have a responsibility to listen and respect the thousands of people that this would impact. We all know you could make a major difference. We know there's no trickle-down affordable housing, just like there's no trickle-down economics. This initiative is the beginning of our city addressing the intersectionality of race, class, gender, disability, and the need to put the greatest efforts towards the most marginalized and at risk in our city. Housing is a human right, and every single person deserves to have stable housing. Do what is right and pass this motion today.
Thank you.